When we are young, we are constantly creating new worlds. But as time passes, we stop. Why? Why does change suddenly become so unachievable? We learn the skills, gain the tools, but we lose the belief. Young people are not boxed in by what's realistic. We have young eyes, fresh ideas, and fresh thoughts. And our world is in desperate need of young eyes, fresh ideas, and fresh thoughts. There is a misconception that young people aren't interested in politics. I believe that the misconception is what it means to be political. If you were to ask a young person who the Prime Minister is, who their members of Parliament are, what their members of Parliament do, they may not be able to give you an answer. But if you were to ask that same young person about Andrew Tate, or why Sydney Sweeney is suddenly so controversial, they'd be the ones educating you. They've read the deep dives, seen the posts, shared the content. Because that is how we interact with the world. These same processes that were unimaginable to previous generations is how we are learning about Palestine, about Ukraine, about Trump's America and the climate crisis and the Online Safety Act. The difference is distance. Because to my generation, Westminster can feel a lot further away than Gaza. What we are seeing is not a declining interest in politics. What we are seeing is young people redefining what it means to be political. And through our posts, hashtags, favourites and boycotts, we are redefining public opinion and government conversation. We had the motivation, we had the knowledge, we had the passion. What we don't have is the platform. Or do we? Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a young person who helped to create a platform. In fact, I've helped with a few. Granted, some were more wobbly than others, but I have a habit of rocking the boat, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm an ambassador for Milton Keynes Islamic Arts and Culture and the Green Roof Project. I'm a youth steering group member for the Politics Project, and prior to that, I was the first ever chair of Milton Keynes Youth Council. I was also a founding member of Walton and Greenleys Youth Council and a school counsellor. And in year 6, I was voted the most likely to create world peace. And to the Bushfield Leavers class of 2019, I promise I'm working on it. But guys, I have a problem, and I need your help. In 3 months, I turn 18. I know, I'm just as upset as you. So I need all of you to step up. Here's a secret. Change is made in rooms. I've been in so many rooms, from Milton Keynes civic offices to Parliament. And today I want to share with you how I did it. But more importantly, I want to share with you how you can do it too. When I say the words, what's your fight? Where does your mind go? Is it that news story that makes your stomach sink? Is it that conversation or post or book that you catch yourself thinking about, not just in the quiet moments, but in the loud moments too? Politics is personal. You have the right to be angry. You have the right to fight for what you believe in. When you identify your passion, you'll be driven by it. When I first became involved in politics, the more involved I got, the more I didn't want to be. I was frustrated and disillusioned and burnt out, and I had way more questions than answers. And suddenly, I realised why it all felt so unchangeable. Yet I was surrounded by young people, like you guys here today, who were desperate for change. My fight is bridging that gap. So you found your fight, brilliant. Your next step is to identify the room that you need to get into, and then figure out how you're going to get there. Whose door do you need to knock on? What emails do you need to send? What questions do you need to ask? Find the organisations that are fighting the same fights you are. Have they published recommendations on what needs to be done to resolve the issue? Do they have programmes like youth forums or volunteering that you can get involved in? What is being done? What is working? And how can you help? I get asked a lot about how I found my first room. On the 26th of January 2022, I was at home with COVID. My body was heavy, I'd watched everything that Netflix has to offer. My head was stuffy, and my nose was stuffy, and my eyes were stuffy. When I got an email from my lovely form tutor, Mrs. Granger. Now, Mrs. Granger loves to talk politics, she loves a good debate, she loves teaching us about the world and letting us teach her. And she knew that her classes were the highlight of my day. So when applications to join Milton Keynes Youth Council crossed her desk, she forwarded them on to me with a very simple message: thought you might be interested. Little did she know, and little did I, that joining Milton Keynes Youth Cabinet at 14 would change my life. It redefined what I thought my life could be, and it demonstrates how all it takes is one conversation to be your catalyst. But back to you guys. You're stood outside the room. Your pace picks up. You're weaving down the corridor thinking, right, this is it. This is the moment that I've been working so hard to get to, this fight that I care so much about, and it's all coming down to me right now. And what I do is going to determine how it goes, what this leads to, if it will lead to anything. And I'm walking, and my hands are hot, and my stomach is tight, and all I can think about is this pressure on me. I have to do the right thing, and pause. Everybody take a deep breath. What was that plan that we had again? What was it that we wanted to say? Why are we here? And how are we going to make the most of it? These are the questions that I wish I'd asked myself before I stepped into my first room. So in light of that, here's some advice. You have to be open-minded. Because in the words of George Bernard Shaw, those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Being open-minded is being willing to consider. It's understanding that every conversation is a collaboration, and every conversation is an opportunity to learn, even if you learn what not to do. You have to understand exactly where the other side is coming from, so you know how, in explicit detail, to tell them exactly what they're doing wrong. Because in the words of zoologist Richard Dawkins, by all means, let's be open-minded, but not so open-minded that our brains fall out. You also have to be the bigger person. A few years ago, I created a workshop called Argue the Point, Not the Person, and it's one of the first things we do with our new youth counsellors. It teaches the difference between arguing and debating. Because when you're discussing something as personal as politics, everything can feel like an attack. What will set you apart is your ability to share and defend your own ideas without causing conflict. You have to understand that a conversation isn't only about changing the other person's mind. It's also about ensuring that they know how their words have impacted you. It's about ensuring that decision makers can never use the excuse of not knowing. Remember, you can always lose an argument, but you can never lose a conversation. The most important thing that you need is confidence. Confidence that your words have weight. Confidence that what you don't know now, you'll learn. Confidence that you belong in that room. Because confidence makes you capable of doing the things that you didn't think were possible. Now, I've always been confident that I had something to say. What I wasn't confident in was my ability to say it. But there's one piece of advice that has stuck with me through all those anxious moments. Fake it till you make it. Walk like you're doing your dream job. Take that idealized version of yourself that we all have and become them. If I told you I was nervous before walking out here today, I would be lying, because nervous is nowhere near a strong enough word. Not even vaguely close. But before I stepped through those doors, I took a deep breath and I stepped into character. Shoulders back, face relaxed. That character of me as I'd like to be. There's a point where thoughts and feelings become actions, and where that distance between yourself and the room starts to shrink, and where that confidence starts to feel less fake. The hardest part is always that first step. Into the character, into the room, into that future that you want to help create. The first event I ever attended as a youth mayor of Milton Keynes was at a primary school. Now, this school dedicates a week every year to inviting in inspiring and influential people from across the city to talk to their students. Imagine how excited I was to be seen as influential. And that's when this young boy picked himself up off the ground and said these words: "We may be small, but we are not puny." Those words really struck me, because here's a boy no older than 10 who already understands that because of his age, his words are valued less. His words remind me constantly of the power and passion that every young person has. Every young person can be a change maker. Every room is an opportunity to learn, to make change, to create those futures that we dreamt about when we were kids. And it's our time to step into the room. My name is Maggie. Thank you very much.